Alright guys, we're out in the trailer today and I'm going to show you how I check my valves in my Formula Vee race car. The tools you're going to want to have ready for this are 13mm wrench, flathead screwdriver, some feeler gauges, maybe a couple paper towels, your drain pan, I also grabbed an absorbent pad, and a jack. Alright, let's get into it. Why do we check our valves and why is there free play in the valves? There's a little bit of free play in the valve because metal will expand when it gets hot. The less gap there is between the rocker and the valve, the more the valve's going to open. So there's a push rod pushing on the bottom of the rocker, which rocks it, and here's the valve, and that pushes the valve open into the cylinder to let air in or let exhaust out. But we never want them touching, because if they're touching and there's pressure on the valve might not close all the way. And if the valve doesn't close all the way, we're going to be losing compression, and compression means power, and we don't want that. So that's why we leave a little bit of a gap. 4 thousandths is a good safe number. I do 4 thousandths for intake and exhaust. Some people do more for the exhaust and less for the intake for various reasons, but I just go 4 thousandths all the way around, make it nice and simple, and I suggest that if you're just starting out in Formula Vee, that you do the same. So let's get into it. All right, so the first thing we're going to do is put the car into 4th gear. All right, here we go. And we're going to jack up the wheel on the left side of the car. So this is cylinder number 1. This is cylinder number 2, and then we have 3 and 4 on that side. We're going to start with cylinder number 1. So we're going to jack up the wheel on this side and this side alone so we can rotate it. And by jacking the car up on this side, the car is going to tilt to the right, and any oil that's in that valve cover will hopefully drain back to the center of the engine. Now that we've got the car jacked up, we'll pop the drain pan underneath the valve cover, use our flathead screwdriver to pop the bail off, just like that. Pull the valve cover off. And usually you want to put the valve cover directly underneath it immediately, just in case any extra oil is going to drip out. And then just set it down facing up to catch any oil or anything that you might drop. Okay, now that we have that off, we're going to rotate the engine to find top dead center on cylinder number 1. And what we can do, or what I do, is I rotate the engine backwards in 4th gear. And what we're looking for is actually the exhaust valve on cylinder number 2 to be moving. Okay, we can see that the exhaust valve is exhausting, and then we're going to look for top dead center, our top dead center line on the pulley wheel. So we rotated the engine so the top dead center mark is lined up with the split in the case where the 2 case halves meet. So top dead center mark is straight up and down, the timing mark is to the right, and we're on top dead center. And we can see that these valves have a little bit of play, and exhaust valve on number 2 is starting to go in, and if we rotate the wheel a little bit, we can just confirm that's rocking. And that's like a little cheat code to help you make sure that you're on top dead center of number 1. The other thing you guys can do is pop your distributor cap off. And I'll do it right now. You can see this. And our distributor is pointed at where the wire for number 1 plug would be. So you can follow the wire for number 1 plug right here all the way to your number 1, and make sure that the distributor is pointed at number 1 to confirm you're at top dead center on number 1. But the valve's rocking and number 2 exhausting is definitely a good way to tell as well. Alright guys, now that we have it confirmed that we're at top dead center on number 1, I'm going to get out our feeler gauges. I have my 4 thousandths feeler gauge. That's what I'm going to adjust my valves to. And we're going to slide the feeler gauge between the valve and the rocker Here's the exhaust valve, and that goes through no problem. And here's the intake valve, and again, that goes in there. Not a lot of resistance, so we're going to check to see what 5 thousandths feels like. Here's a 5 thousandths feeler gauge, and this, we're looking to make sure this doesn't fit, and this does not fit in that one. And I can barely get it in that one, and it's really, really tight. So we're not going to adjust those, because those are close enough to 4 thousandths for me. That's what I like to see. So we're going to go to cylinder number 2 and see what that one looks like. All right, and the easy way to get to our next cylinder is by rotating our wheel backwards till we're at bottom dead center. So we're going to look for the next line on our flywheel. So I'm going to start rotating this backwards. So that line is the timing mark, which we don't care about. And we're going to keep going. And this line actually has a little bit of red ink on it, and that shows you its bottom dead center, and we're going to line that up with the center of the case. So now that that's lined up with the center of the case, we can confirm that we're on top dead center number 2, because these rockers have a little bit of free play. And number 1 is starting its intake stroke, so it's opening the intake valve. All right, get my 4 thousandths feeler gauge out again. Okay, that went in easy. That went in easy as well. Let's try 5 thousandths on this one. Feel like these might be a little bit loose. Oh, 5 thousandths is going in there on both of them. So yeah, these are a little bit loose, definitely looser than on number 1. So we are going to adjust these slightly. So for that, I grab my 13mm wrench. I'm going to loosen the nut just enough to spin the adjuster. And because these are so close, we only have to move this a tiny, tiny amount. So I'm going to tighten the adjuster just a tiny, tiny amount. And I'm going to re-snug this up. Okay, we're going to get out the 4 thousandths again. Here we go. It's going in nicely there. Just a little bit of resistance, so I don't think the 5 thousandths is going to fit now. And yet the 5 thousandths will not fit. So we know we're at 4 thousandths or just in between. And what I like to feel is some resistance. So when I get the 4 thousandths feeler gauge between the valves, you want it to have a little bit of resistance getting in there. And then if it drags, if it has some tension, like this one does, that's okay. That's what we're looking for. That's how we know we are at 4 thousandths. If it just has some tension. If you really struggle to get it in there, you might as well readjust it. So we did that one. We got to do this one now. Okay. And just tiny, tiny adjustments. One thing you want to watch out for too is when you loosen the nut, the screw might turn with it, the adjuster might turn with it. So you just pay attention to which way that little screw slot is going as you loosen or tighten the nut to see if the adjuster is turning with it. Okay, this is my 4 thousandths, and yeah, it's definitely taking some pressure to get in there, and it has some nice drag coming out. So bam, we are done on number 2. So we know that these are adjusted. We're going to check our valve cover closely. Grab a rag, actually. I want to check for any debris in there, but what I usually just do is wipe it out anyway, even if it doesn't look like there's anything. Give that a good wipe out. Wipe the bottom of this out. Make sure, take a good look in there. Make sure there's nothing in there, that no foreign objects, no hairs or little rocks fell in, especially if you're doing this at the racetrack. Put your valve cover back on. The valve cover, the shorter side goes to the top, the longer side goes to the bottom. Make sure it's seated. Pull your bail up, grab your screwdriver, put the screwdriver right in the center, and just pull it up with that until it clicks. And there you go. That's 1 and 2 done. Alright, now we're on the 3-4 side. We're going to pop the bail off with a screwdriver. Make sure your catch can is underneath. Drop the cover down. And we're going to rotate the engine backwards again using the wheel until we're at the top dead center mark on the pulley. Right now we're at bottom dead center from number 2. So coming around. And now we're at top dead center for number 3. Right there. Okay. So here's number 3. We have a little bit of play there. And number 4, exhaust valve is rocking. So that's a good indicator to help you identify. As long as you got free play here and the number 4 exhaust valve is rocking, you know you're at top dead center on number 3. Again, you can look at the distributor cap just to double check yourself. So we're going to get out our feeler gauges again. Find our 4/1000 feeler gauge. And we're going to slide it in. And we have easy access with the 4/1000s. So let's get our 5/1000s back out. Uh, 5/1000s is going in there, and it doesn't really want to go in there. So we just need to adjust the intake valve on this one. Just want to tighten it up just slightly. Give that a good snug twist. And now we cannot fit the 5/1000s in. Get our 4/1000s back out. And that goes in, and there's some nice resistance there. Perfect. Just double check that one. And we're good. That is number 3 done. So now I'm just going to keep going, rotate the engine backwards again with using the wheel until we're at bottom dead center. There we are. And now we should have free play here, which we do on number 4. And the intake on number 3 will be rocking. Okay, so we moved on to number 4. We got our, let's get our 4/1000 feeler gauge out. There we go, 4/1000. And that fits nice and freely in there. Let's try our 5/1000. Oh, that doesn't want to go. And that doesn't want to go. So we're good. That is number 4. So we're all done. Again, you're going to grab your rag. Going to take a good look in the valve cover here. Wipe this all out. Make sure there's no hairs or debris or little rocks. Also check in here. And we're going to pop this right back on. Use your screwdriver. Make sure the valve cover is all the way seated. Now if you took your distributor cap off like I did, make sure you put that back on and then start the engine up and see how she sounds. So the question is, how often are you supposed to check your valves? And I say once a weekend or once before the weekend. I generally do it before the weekend, and then I don't check them at all during the weekend unless I think something's wrong or I think I'm really down on power for some reason. So you want to check them when they're cold, and preferably before you get to the racetrack. Try to do all your maintenance work before you get to the racetrack, because when you're at the racetrack, you're always going to run into little problems that you did not foresee, and it's going to take up your time and you're going to forget about these other things. So check your valves, check your oil, do all the maintenance you can do before you get to the racetrack to save yourself a headache.